You're listening to the weekly Parsha podcast, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Shemesh Israel, 5775, 2015. This week's Parsha is Parshas Reeh, and we have in this week's Parsha the continuation, as we've been speaking about, of Moshe Rabbeinu's final speech to the Jewish people as they're about to enter the land of Israel, as they're about to come into Eretz Yisrael. And there are a number of things that he says in this week's Parsha which are very interesting and need explanation. We start off the Parsha, we start off the very beginning. It says, Reeh anochi nosein lifnechem hayom bracha uklala. Moshe Rabbeinu tells us that Hashem, God, places in front of the Jewish people blessings and curses. Es habracha asher tishmu el mitzvos Hashem Elokeichem. The blessings come when a person listens to the commandments of Hashem, our God. Asher anochi mitzaveh eschem hayom, that Moses is commanding us today. V'aklala, what about the curses? If the Jewish people does not listen to the commandments of God, and they turn away from the path of God, that I am commanding you today, to go after other gods, idolatry that you don't know. Now, so the first thing the Torah starts off with in the Parsha is, you have blessings and you have curses. Blessings come if we keep the Torah. Curses come, heaven forbid, if we don't keep the Torah. Now, what's really interesting is immediately Moshe Rabbeinu tells us that the mitzvahs, the blessings and the curses are connected to something specific, something physical. What are they connected to? It's the next verse. It's chapter 11, verse 29. And it will be when God brings you to the land that you are coming to inherit. You shall place the blessings on Mount Grizim, and the curses upon the mountain of Eval. So immediately the Torah connects the blessings, placing the blessings onto the land, onto the mountains of Eretz Yisrael. The Jewish people, as they come into the land of Israel, the first thing, or one of the first things that they do, is they come to these mountains, and there's an amazing scene, an amazing ma'amad, where they stand there and they place the blessings on this mountain, they place the curses on the other mountain. It needs explanation. We have spoken about this, but it needs a deeper explanation. What is the idea of placing the blessings upon the mountains? And how is it connected to Eretz Yisrael? As we read the psukim here over and over and over again, obviously we're speaking, Moshe is talking at the threshold of the Jewish people entering into Eretz Yisrael. But over and over he speaks about the fact that we're coming into the land of Israel, and therefore we have to keep the Torah. Only a few verses later it says like this: you are passing over the Jordan, to come to inherit the land, that God is giving it to you. You shall inherit it, and you shall live there. The next verse, immediately, connection between Eretz Yisrael and the Torah. Ushemartim lasois, and you shall keep it. Es kol hachukim es hamishpatim. You have to keep all these statutes, all of these laws, asher anochi nosein lifnechem hayom, that God is placing before you today. Over and over again, we see that in order to keep the Torah, there's some deep connection between the keeping of the Torah and the land of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, is a place which is special, which is unique. It's a place that uniquely one can fulfill the commandments, one can fulfill the Torah, one can have a relationship with Hashem in this place specifically. Now I think it's important to look at the fact that we read Sefer Devarim, we read this book, which is all about the Jewish people about to enter Eretz Yisrael, and it's the speech of Moshe Rabbeinu as they're about to enter into the land of Israel. We always read this book, starting from around the time of Shavasar B'Tammuz, starting from the 3 weeks when we lose the Beis HaMikdash, when the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, all the way up to Rosh Hashana. We have 10 weeks. We start with the Shalosh de Peronius, the 3 weeks of, we read these negative things, the destruction of the temple, the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And then we have 7 Shiva de Nechemta. We have 7 weeks of Nechama, starting with Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, where God consoles the Jewish people, and that there's going to be a future for us in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. We're going to receive the land of Israel back after this long and deep and dark exile. We have these 7 weeks, but we have a total of 10 weeks. They start at Shivasar B'Tammuz, and when do they end? They end at Rosh Hashana. It's very interesting. We have these 10 weeks where we're talking about the destruction of the temple. We're talking about the future rebuilding of Eretz Yisrael, of the land of Israel, of the temple, of the Jewish people returning to their land. Leading up to what? Leading up to Rosh Hashana. It's very interesting. We read Sefer Dvarim, which is all about standing right there at the threshold of Eretz Yisrael. This is what we read as we're about to get to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And then on Sukkot, we complete the Torah, we get to that point, and then we start again from Bereshis. But what is the understanding of this? What is the depth of this? Why did Chazal, when our sages set up how we read the Torah, why did they set it up this way? That we read these Parshias that speak about Eretz Yisrael, we read them as we're leading up to Rosh Hashanah. We read these Haftorahs, the special readings from the prophets. They're also read at this time, leading up to Rosh Hashanah. Why is it that the lead up to Rosh Hashanah, the lead up, we're about to start Elul, Rosh Chodesh Elul is Shabbos and Sunday. We're about to start Elul. It's 1 month now until Rosh Hashanah. So we're getting ready for Rosh Hashanah, and here we are reading about the land of Israel. And the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu Moses make no mistake. He makes it very clear. Eretz Yisrael and the Torah and the mitzvahs are intertwined, are inextricably bound. It's almost, I don't want to say it's all the way because, we've been in Golus for 2,000 years. We've been keeping the Torah for 2,000 years. But it almost sounds like the only place that you can keep the Torah. Chazal say it. The only place that you can keep the Torah can truly have a relationship with Hashem is in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. Yes, there are many beautiful cities. There's amazing places. There's Lakewood. There's Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Switzerland. You go throughout the world. Australia. You can find Jews everywhere. You can find Jews anywhere. You can find a synagogue anywhere. But our Torah, the Sefer Devarim that we're reading right now, makes it clear. The place of the Jew to keep the Torah, to have a relationship with Hashem, is in Eretz Yisrael. So what's the meaning of that? What is the idea behind it? Why do we read this as our introduction to Rosh Hashanah? What does this teach us? Now, an amazing medrash on these very verses that say that you're going into the land of Israel, you're about to inherit it, and you will keep the Torah there. These two psukim are right next to each other. That's what it says, making it clear that the place to keep the Torah is in Eretz Yisrael. So there's two stories in a medrash here that I want to share with you. It says like this: Ma'aseh Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira, Rabbi Masya ben Chorash, Rabbi Hanania ben Achi, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Yonasan, sheyotzim chutz la'aretz. There were a group of rabbis. They were leaving the land of Israel. They were going out to chutz la'aretz, outside of Israel. V'giu lefaltum. They came to a certain location, which was outside of Eretz Yisrael. V'zachu es Eretz Yisrael. They got there, and all of a sudden they remembered. They paid attention. Their heart awoke them to the fact that they're not in Eretz Yisrael anymore. They're not in the land of Israel. Zakfu eineim. They looked up. They straightened their eyes. V'zogu d'maiseim. The tears started to flow. V'karu bigdeim. And they ripped their clothing. They did something which showed mourning, showed sadness, showed they lost something. V'karu es hamikra hazeh. And they read, or they said out this verse, V'yirashtem esav yishavtem bo. You will inherit it and you shall live there. Ushmartem la'aseh kol hachukim. And there you will keep all of the statutes. Amru, and they said, Yeshivas Eretz Yisrael shkula keneged kol mitzvahs shebatayra. Living in the land of Israel is comparable to keeping the entire Torah. Amazing thing. A person lives in the land of Israel, it's equal to the keeping of the entire Torah. That's what we see from the fact that these two verses are next to each other. Another story in this same vein. Ma'aseh Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua of Rabbi Yochanan Sandler. Story with Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua and Rabbi Yochanan Sandler. Shahayu holchen l'netzivim es Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira l'mod mimenu Torah. They were leaving Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, for a good reason. They were going to learn Torah. V'gilu Tzidon, v'zachu es Yisrael. They came to Tzidon, which it seems either was on the edge of Eretz Yisrael or they were outside of Israel. And they remembered the land of Israel. Zakfu eineim. They too, they looked up. V'zogu d'maiseim. And their eyes started to pour forth tears. V'karu bigdeim. They ripped their clothing. V'karu es hamikra hazeh. They read this verse. V'yirashtem esav. Yishavtem v'shmartem la'aseh kol chukim es hamishpatim. That you will inherit the land and you will keep the Torah there. Amru, they said, Yeshivas Eretz Yisrael shkula keneged kol mitzvahs shebatayra. They said again the same statement. that living in the land of Israel, staying in the land of Israel, is equal to all of the Torah. It's equal to keeping the entire Torah. Chazru v'alohem l'Eretz Yisrael. They couldn't stay outside of Israel. They had to return to the land of Israel. You know, as we read the Parsha further, we see over and over again, Smachtem lefnei Hashem elokeichem. Where do you rejoice? Where's the true simcha? Where's the true relationship with Hashem? It's in Eretz Yisrael. It's in front of God. Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, is that place that's called in front of God. It's the place where we have a true relationship with Hashem. It's almost like this is the place where it's natural for a Jew to be a Jew. I had a conversation with a producer of music, producer of all kinds of different media, not a secular person, a non-religious person. We're talking about music, creating some kind of music, that's appropriate for the masses in Israel, even for those who aren't religious, but still with a deep message, with something deeper. And he said to me, you have to be careful about how you say it, but people do want to hear it. He said, look at me, I'm not someone who's religious. This is what he said to me. I'm not someone who's religious. But I walk up to that kotel, I walk into Jerusalem, I walk to the kotel, to that wall, the Western Wall. I can't help but be moved. There's something there, there's something powerful, there's something spiritual. The land of Israel, specifically the Kaisel, the Har HaBayis, the Temple Mount, these are places that spirituality is palpable. Relationship with Hashem is palpable. It's almost impossible to go there and not be affected, not be moved by it. In thinking about the connection between Eretz Yisrael and Rosh Hashana, it's very interesting. The Torah tells us that Eretz Yisrael is a land, we read it, I believe, in last week's Parsha, recently we read it, that Eretz Asher, Einei Hashem Elokecha Tamid Ba, the eyes of Hashem are always there. Rosh Hashana ad Achris Shana. From the beginning of the year until the end of the year. We see that when Hashem wants to describe and tell us, talk about his hashgacha pratis, his special divine providence that he gives to Eretz Yisrael, he says his eyes are there, from the beginning of the year until the end of the year. So it's remarkable. There's two things that you see in the verse. One is that the eyes of God, whatever this means, the eyes of God are connected to Eretz Yisrael. God is looking at the land, special divine providence. That's number one. The second thing is that there's somehow a connection to Rosh Hashana, to the beginning of the year, to the beginning of the year in time. What is that connection? What does it mean? Hashem looks at Eretz Yisrael. What is the connection? As we asked before, what is the connection between Rosh Hashana and Eretz Yisrael? Why do we talk about getting to Eretz Yisrael, the importance of Eretz Yisrael, the importance of living in Israel? It's Keneged Kol HaTorah Kula. Just living in Israel is as powerful as keeping the entire Torah. Why is that? What does that mean? And how is it connected to Rosh Hashana, to the beginning of the year? It's also interesting, speaking about sight, speaking about seeing. Moshe Rabbeinu says, see the fact that I place before you today blessings and curses. What's the seeing? What's the seeing? What's the idea of seeing? I was thinking, the Rosh, when we look at it's called Rosh Hashana, it's called the beginning of the year. It's not called the beginning of the year. It's called the head of the year. Rosh Hashana. Rosh means the head. Why is it called the head of the year? Why isn't it called Tchilat Hashana, the beginning of the year? It's called Rosh Hashana. It's called Resh Hashana, the head of the year. Why is that? Now, in thinking about it, we look at our head. Certainly it's clear. The head represents the spiritual part of the human being. It's where the brain is, the intellect is. It's where the neshama, as the Nefesh HaChaim speaks, the neshama comes into the body through the head. But besides for that, if we talk about the human experience, where does a person experience all of his sensations? A person sees from his eyes. You perceive yourself as in your head. Or in another way of thinking about it, if a person feels, if a person stubs his toe, or if a person touches something with his fingers. So yes, the sensation is that I'm feeling that in my toes or in my fingers. But the true place that sensation occurs is inside of the mind. The nerves send the information into the mind with the location of where that pain or that sensation is coming from. And indeed, the information is there inside of the head. That's the Rosh. It's the center of communications. It's where all the action is. It's the base. It's the all-inclusive place. The brain controls everything. That's where everything is based. Rosh Hashana, the head of the year, the beginning of the year. What do we do on Rosh Hashana? Chazal say it's a day of judgment, but we don't really talk about the judgment that much. What we do speak about is that Hashem is our king. We speak about the Malchus of Hashem. We also talk very interestingly about the future time of the times of the Mashiach, when everyone is going to join together to serve Hashem. But it's the center, it's the root, it's the brains of the year, it's the mind of the year. If I make God my king on Rosh Hashanah, if I make Hashem to be my master on Rosh Hashanah, so that's the brain, that's the mind. So then the hashlachot, the result of that in all of my year, my entire year, is going to be about the arms of my year, the legs of my year, the movement of my year, so to speak. The body of the year will all be, if my mind is thinking God is my master, God is my king, so then the result will be that my entire year will look like that. That's the Rosh Hashana. Now that's true in time and in space. When we talk about the spatial location of the Rosh, of the head, the center of communications of the entire globe, it's Eretz Yisrael, it's Yerushalayim, it's Jerusalem, it's the Har HaBayis, it's the temple, it's the center of the world, it's the center spiritually of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to Hashem. When we say that a person who lives in Eretz Yisrael, it's like they fulfilled the entire Torah, what does that mean? It means that this is the space which is the foundation of the relationship with Hashem throughout the world. Yes, a person in Los Angeles can keep the Torah. Yes, a person in Chicago can keep the Torah. Yes, in Switzerland. Yes, in Australia. Yes, it's true. But where's the root of it? Where does it come from? Where does that power come from? Where is it possible? How is it possible for him in that far-flung place, in that which is the hands of the world, which is Los Angeles, or the feet of the world, which is Australia, etc.? How does that happen? It's because in Eretz Yisrael, the foundation of the world, it's possible to keep the Torah, or the Torah is being kept in Eretz Yisrael. Now, this obviously, if we're going to say this, so it's going to be a problem, because so many years, or thousands of years, there were no Jews in Eretz Yisrael, or very few Jews in Eretz Yisrael keeping the Torah. So what does that mean? There was no brain. If there's no brain, you can't have a body. There's no functioning body. That's an important question. And just perhaps briefly to address it, we can think about the fact that, Eretz Yisrael is the only place that God says, if you don't keep the Torah, you will be thrown out of Israel. If you don't keep the Torah in Los Angeles, you will not get thrown out of your house. If you don't keep the Torah in Chicago, you won't be thrown out. If you don't keep the Torah in Geneva, you won't be thrown out of your house. In Eretz Yisrael, if you don't keep the Torah, you're out of here. Right? Eretz Yisrael is the only place that's true. It's the only place that the Torah says if you don't keep the Torah, you lose your rights to be here. So, as long as the Jew is in Eretz Yisrael keeping the Torah, so then the brain is functioning. Everything is fine. When the Jew doesn't keep the Torah in the land of Israel, what happens to him? It's like the brain ceases functioning, and he has to be thrown out. He can't be there. The brain is dead. If the brain is dead, there's, all of the functions of the body are going to be equally dysfunctional. And the Jew in exile, when the Jew is in exile, so there's a darkness in the world. There's a lack of spirituality in the world. There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect from the true reality. The avodas Hashem of the Jew in Galus is just not the same. It's not the same. The Jew in exile can't serve God, can't relate to God in the same way that a Jew in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, can relate to God. There is an idea that the Batei Midrash, the place of learning, the Batei Knesses, the place of tefillah, of prayer, they get a kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, they get a holiness of Eretz Yisrael, and that represents the fact that indeed we can l'shachzer, we can kind of get a taste of or bring back Eretz Yisrael, that connection to God, that brain we can somehow bring back, we can revitalize, bring back some of the vital signs, so to speak, by keeping the Torah. But it's only it's a minute, a small amount compared to what happens when Jews are in Eretz Yisrael, learning the Torah, keeping the Torah, focused on a relationship with Hashem. You can't compare it to when Jews are outside of Israel, keeping the Torah, having a relationship with Hashem. It's a beautiful thing. We couldn't get back to Eretz Yisrael if that hadn't happened for 2,000 years. But once we have Eretz Yisrael again, once there's an opportunity to live in Eretz Yisrael again, you can't compare it. All of a sudden, the functioning of the brain is coming back. Yes, we've been in exile for so long. The body, the limbs have been dysfunctional. Things haven't been working. But we're coming back. We're coming back to Eretz Yisrael. The Torah is returning in Eretz Yisrael. The relationship with Hashem is returning in the land of Israel. Rosh Hashana, the beginning of the year, is the Malchus, is the kingship, is the making God our king. Eretz Yisrael is a place where we similarly make God our king. This is the place. It doesn't make sense for a Jew to be here. What are you doing here? Do you know everyone wants to destroy you? Are you crazy? It only makes sense to be here if this is the place that Hashem, God, chose for Jewish people, which is the center, the brains of the entire world, of what it means to have spirituality, of what it means to have a relationship with Hashem. This is the place. And before we enter into Rosh Hashana, before we get there, before we talk about Malchus, before we talk about God being our king, we need to remember the true place where we can make God our king. We can't forget about that. We can't forget that our lives as Jews always need to be about Sefer Devarim. We're about to enter Eretz Yisrael. We're about to get there. The whole story from Bereshis was Lech Lecha. Abraham, the first Jew, God says to him, go to Israel. The entire story is him going to Israel, going down to Golus into exile, but coming back. The Jewish people are on their way back. They're always on their way back. The Jew always has to be on his way back. And when we get to Rosh Hashanah, we're not just on our way back. We're almost there. We're on the edge. We're on the border of Israel. We're about to enter. We're about to get a relationship with Hashem. We're about to enter into the brains, into the Rosh, into the center of where that relationship occurs. And it's in Eretz Yisrael. I need to remember that. Even if I'm in Los Angeles, even if I'm in Chicago, even if I'm in all these different locations, I'm in the feet, I'm in the hands, I'm in the extremities of the body, I'm in the far-flung places of the earth. But where's my Rosh? Where's my head? Where's my root? Where do I truly serve Hashem? Where does the Jew belong? I belong in Eretz Yisrael. I belong in Israel. I belong in that place where I can truly serve Hashem, where the air inspires me. The holiness of the land itself inspires me. And just living here is like I'm keeping the entire Torah. I don't do anything. I just walk into Israel. I get off the El Al plane. I walk down. I kiss the ground. It's like I've kept the entire Torah. I've kept all of the commandments. I have a relationship with Hashem just by being here. I need to remember that. This is the Rosh. Before I get into Rosh Hashana, my essence, I need to remember that my essence is serving God. God is my master. God is my king. My essence is Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, where it's natural to serve Hashem, where it's the place where all I want, it's the place where I can just express, I can experience serving Hashem. As Hashem says, the eyes of God are on the land of Israel. Reeh, see. You look at the mountains of Eretz Yisrael. You walk into Israel, you look at the mountains, and you see Avodas Hashem. I go to Seattle every year, and there in Seattle there's a mountain called Mount Rainier. It's a gorgeous mountain. You can see it from everywhere. It's so big. It's so beautiful. In Eretz Yisrael, you see the mountains. Everywhere you go, you see Avodas Hashem. Place those blessings and curses on the mountains. The land itself speaks Avodas Hashem, speaks serving God, speaks relationship with Hashem. I want to bless you, and please bless me back. Hashem should help us that our Rosh, our head, our minds, our hearts should be in Eretz Yisrael, should be focused on the service of Hashem, and what it means to truly inherit the land of Israel, what it means to truly live in Israel, what it means to truly be someone who's, when you're here, you're shkula keneged kol haTorah kula. It's like you can't help yourself. When you're outside of Israel, you look up at the sky. Hashem should help us to look up at the sky, and our eyes should pour forth tears, and we should mamash rend our garments in sadness. How can I not go back to Eretz Yisrael? How can I leave Eretz Yisrael? And like these sages, we should be zeich, we should merit to return to Eretz Yisrael. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.